All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the DFS Army PenatKill League of Legends Daily Fantasy Sports Breakdown. Today, we're talking about the LPL semifinal slate. We've got Invictus, Top Esports facing off in one bracket. We've got FPX and JDG facing off in the next bracket. We've all pretty much taken down the nuts the last two nights of these two game slates. So let's see if we can keep it going. I've got my man, Advantage, LOL, DFS, the GOAT of League of Legends, here with me. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
Going all right. I want to keep this win streak going. I've got 250K takedowns in a row.
Yeah, the massive chops coming around, but a win is a win.
That's true. In fairness, I did not win the full 50,000 to share it with a lot of people. I don't mind sharing. That's what all about. Sharing's caring. Yeah, I'm all about it. So let's break it down. Today we've got the two gamer and much tighter odds here. So let's bring up your sheet. We know the deal with League of Legends. The last two nights, 4-3 stacks, been doing it. So we're going to talk about if there's any reason to deviate from the formula that works on a nightly basis. But let's get started on these two games. First one, Invictus taking on Top Esports. Advantage, break it down for me.
All right, so yeah, as you mentioned, these two games are both really close compared to what we've been seeing in the last couple of days. There have been I think the last couple of slates have been rather straightforward. You just pick the favorites, roll with them, and they take care of business. But today there is potential for all four of these teams to be in play, and all four of these teams can win. So the first game is IG and TES. TES are coming in really hot as well since adding Jackie Love. He has made their team elite tier. He is definitely one of the better players in the league, and now Top Esports as a whole is fighting for that number one spot. He shot calls a lot. This is against his former team, so there are some revenge game narratives here.
Are any of the former teammates dating his baby mama?
I cannot confirm or deny any of that information. I don't know about that.
I heard a rumor, but I don't know how much we should trust Hofbro and his rumors. But I did hear a rumor about it. But all right, continue. So this is Jackie Love's former team. Jackie Love been beasting in the last round that we watched. I mean, it was like night. Jackie Love doing all the scoring, and everybody else was just kind of sitting back going, "Wow, these guys are good," from their own team.
Yeah, basically, like they honestly did not play that well in their last series. It was literally just Knight and Jackie Love being better than their opponents, and they took over the game just because they're so skilled individually.
That's like when you played with me an actual game of League of Legends.
I mean, we're playing against people that are like pretty new to the game as well, I would assume. So I have a bit of an unfair advantage.
That's true. That's true. All right, so Invictus is got a. I mean, they're a reasonable favorite here, minus 215. You got a plus 140 on the comeback on TES, but we all love TES. We all love all the points that Jackie Love puts up. So give me some of the players here. It looks to me, based on the average points per game, that IG not as prolific of a scoring offense. Explain why that is. Why do the players on Top Esports, for example, here kind of have a little more green going on than the players from Invictus?
So sure. So we have talked about this a little bit in the past, where IG get a lot of kills in a game, but a lot of these kills are in isolated instances where only 2 or 3 members of the team are participating in that kill. They might score 25 kills in a game, but Leanne or the Shy might only have 50-60% kill participation, which is what leads to these slightly lower numbers than you would expect from a team that kills this much. TES, on the other hand, since everything runs through Knight and Jackie Love, that's pretty much their only win condition. They'll be involved in everything, so their scores are going to be higher than IG would have on an average basis.
Really important statistically to somewhat pay attention to KP percentage right here, because it does tell that tale. Like, as you just explained it, I get it. But initially, I just kind of ignore that. But you do see the way the scoring system works for League of Legends, because assists are worth so much, and certain teams, like a team like, I guess, Top Esports, when they're in fight mode, they tend to get together and do a 5 or a 4 on whatever, or 5-man attack. According to this, probably 4-man, leaving the top up there just to hang out. A lot of times it looks like, based on these KP numbers. And you could see here, Puff is like a soloist. He likes to hang out and do his own thing, get his kills. 59% KP percentage, which is way, way lower than someone like Knight at 77 and Jackie Love at 72. So that does explain why, as a team, IG doesn't seem to score as well as a team like TES, even though they get similar kill numbers. And it's also important to note in that regard that total kill projections aren't as critical here, because if one kill on TES could potentially lead to 1 kill and 2 or 3 assists in that 1 kill, whereas the other one might be just a straight kill with no assists, and it's a massive difference in team scoring across all of these different players. So that's really interesting. Now, why do you think Invictus is favored here? What about their gameplay is going to lead or leads one to believe that they should be the favorite?
So this number has moved a bit in Invictus's favor since yesterday when I was looking at it. I think it started around minus 190, 180, something like that, and now it's in the 200s. A reason for that, I believe, is the way that Top played against WE. I believe it's WE in their last match. It was really not that impressive. As I mentioned, it was basically just Knight and Jackie running over the games. They were often behind a little bit. They were not executing their game plans that well. They had a solid game plan. They had solid drafting. That's not their problem. But during the game itself, they were getting behind on silly little errors, and it would just be up to Knight and Jackie to bail them out. And I think that plays a part into it, because it showed some of the weaknesses that Top Esports has, and then that many haven't seen, because Jackie Love's only been here for a little bit, and they've kind of steamrolled everybody.
Coming down to earth, new shiny new toy. It's like a Jackie Love shows up, everybody's excited, the team's excited. Go on a run. It's kind of like when a team fires a coach and everybody like rallies together for a minute, and then you come back down to earth a little bit. So they haven't quite come back down. Have they lost any series at all with Jackie Love?
No. The only game they lost was that one to WE in their last series. Before that, they won all their best of threes in the regular season, even against FPX in their last game of the season.
Wild.
So they've been good.
Okay, and I'm looking at the odds here. So Pinnacle has it at the moment at minus 199. So it's moving. It's moving all around. They have it minus 234 to go under 5 games, which is interesting. So they're really thinking that this is going to be a 4-round set. They're giving 1 game to TE Sports and the rest to Invictus. Be interesting to see how that plays out. It is important to note, as we said, Invictus being they're not that expensive. It's interesting the way the salaries come out, because they're almost the same between. Actually, I'm looking at them now.
It's very minute differences.
You're not getting much of a discount to play the underdog, because this is a more prolific scoring team on the underdog side. So let's see what happens there. All right, let's move on to the next game on the slate. But all right, before we move on, one last note for the watchers is, how do you deal with a situation like this? You've got, a minus 199 favorite. We know that that's going to be about a 62% win probability, 65%, let's call it, without bringing up the calculator. About 65%. So you got 65%, 35% projected win probability. If you're making massive lineups and you want to just go with the flow, I would suggest 60-40 or 65-35 exposure. I mean, is that kind of how you work it yourself, or do you like to pick a winner and go heavy on that team?
I think I only build a few lines, so I typically will still play both sides. If I'm playing like even 3 lines, I'll still have both teams in play on a slate like this. But in general, you're right. It's a good idea to cover all your angles on a slate like it's only 2 games, so anything can happen still. Yes, Topper not as favored as IGR, but their upside is massive if they win, obviously. So it's good to cover that option.
I like one thing I like about Top is like you can reliably kind of avoid probably 369 and definitely Yungina.
Ungina.
Huge Gina. You can avoid huge Gina at the captain position, and pretty much know that Knight or Jackie Love, or maybe Karsa to a lesser extent when you need salary, are going to be scoring really well here. So, but I mean, it's really Knight and Jackie Love. How do Rookie and Puff do defensively? I mean,
see, that's okay. That's a good point to touch on. I think IG are one of the most skilled individually like teams in the planet. Each of their players is extremely talented by themselves, which is why I think it'll be harder for Top to do what they did against WE, because Knight is not going to roll over Rookie like he did to Teacher Ma, and Jackie Love will not find it as easy to dominate bot lane with Puff and Southwind, who are very solid players. So that's why I think, and the Shy, I think, has a massive advantage in the top lane individually. But
interesting, yeah. So it will be harder, and I think we could both agree, huge vagina, it has just nothing to offer here.
He's okay. He's not great. I think QQ, your favorite.
I have a. Why would they get rid of Kwee?
I think he's better than Yu Yanja, but the reason they're playing him is because when Jackie Love joined the team, Yu Yanja was his partner in like the game. They played together all the time.
Up.
Yeah,
that's what's up. You know what? It's like a pitcher and a catcher. He likes to work with a certain guy.
Yep, pretty much that.
Support and ADC, for those of you who have not played, I play League of Legends not professionally, but I play. And support, it's very important. And my character role, as you know, is ADC, right?
Yes.
It's very important to have a support. Like you gotta be like this with your support. You gotta be of one mind.
Basically, the way the game works at this point, the support actually controls the lane. So for the early game, because the ADC needs to farm up, they need to get their items before they're the main guy. So the support controls everything early. So it's really important to have that synergy.
Gotta have the synergy with the support. All right, let's move on to game 2. So we've got essentially what is a pick'em matchup between Fun Plus Phoenix, FPX, and JD Gaming. Minus 105, minus 130. That is a pick'em for those of you who really want to nitpick. It's a pick'em game, 50-50 odds. So the first thing my eyes always go to are the average scores. We know these teams. I'm playing them all year. We're in the semifinals of the playoffs. You've got the big dog for FPX is Do and B in the mid lane. Really interesting. The next best player on the team, or the next best scorer, is of course the ADC LWX. On the flip side, Loken is the man, and Kanavi. I've often heard. Crow is saying it's probably Kanavi best jungler in the league. Correct?
He did win. He just won the regular season MVP award, and based on his regular season play, he definitely, I'd say, is the best at this moment.
Best in the league. There we go. Yeah. So you've got advantage to FPX. Break down this matchup for me. Why does FPX get the advantage in your mind?
All right. So the one way I look at this game is their win conditions. How does each team win the game? We'll start with Fun Plus. For Fun Plus, it's Do and B. He is a super carry. We saw last night what he can do when they give him resources like they always do, and he absolutely took over games by himself. The enemy team were all trying to dive him and kill him, and he just creates so much room for LWX to freely do damage. And they leave Gimgoon alone. Gimgoon played pretty well, but he had like terrible fantasy scores because they leave Gimgoon on an island and they focus on the Do and B. They focus on the bottom lane. So that's how FPX wins the game. And for JDG,
so he run out of his lane to the bottom, or they just team fight like by where the dragons are and whatnot?
Yeah, a lot of the times Tien and Do and B will just dive bot lane together. A lot of times they'll group together and either fight for dragons or fight for Rift Herald. They all move together pretty much, leaving Gimgoon on the opposite side is what they usually do.
Okay, cool. All right, so doing B, LWX, Crisp, and Tion, group battles. They're going to be seeing Kanavi, Yago, Loken, and Lev Mao. Now, individually, would you say, because JD Gaming, man, they got a pretty nice record too. 26-10, elite team. What is good about this team, and what's their path to victory?
Right. So yeah, JDG did finish second seed above FPX due to FPX losing to Top Esports in their last regular season game. So they're definitely both elite teams. For JDG, they got a lot better once Zoom came back in for them. He is proficient elite at both carry champions and tank champions, so he's very versatile. Kanavi is their biggest win condition. He is obviously their star player, MVP, whatever, but he pressures the early game. He pressures the map. He will often focus Zoom in the early game because that's their sort of dynamic duo. Kanavi makes everything run. Yagao is there just to support. He doesn't play real carry champs besides LeBlanc, which always gets banned away from him. But he's just there to not lose, basically. And Loken is a very solid AD carry as well. He's not a super carry threat most of the time, but he plays his role very well.
So in the case of JD Gaming, the guy we want to focus on for the captain spot is probably more along the Kanavi lines. But
yeah, potentially.
But the risk. So whenever you're constructing a lineup, you have to understand the risk. When you play a player at captain, you're forced to play a second player at the same position in the lineup. So if you're doing a JD Gaming Top Esports lineup, you wind up with Kanavi and Karsa, which I think is a great combo.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine. But then you have to compare that to like if you were to put Loken and then you get Loken Jackie Love, right? So and you still get Kanavi as well. So you have to think of it. Yeah.
It's just a question of that, like which way do you go? And on the flip side, Invictus, Leanne has just not been a great scorer with the Shy in the lineup. Like that combo has not worked out very well for Leanne for the most part. So I'd be loath to use my jungler spot on Leanne. I'd rather in those type of lineups, although you probably can't afford it, but I'd much rather see something along the lines of a Loken. Actually, if I'm using JD Gaming, maybe like a Loken Puff duo with Kanavi in the lineup rather than trying to go, Kanavi and then forcing Leanne and then only getting to use one of Loken or Puff. So that's kind of the consideration as long as salaries come together. But you have a lean for FPX. How strong is that lean?
Sorry, could you repeat that last question?
Your lean to FPX, is it a strong lean or it's a, the odds makers are kind of right here, kind of lean, but
yeah, I'd say it's pretty close to what the odds makers have it as. I can't say definitively like, oh, FPX will smash JDG, but that's just not realistic. But I do think that Kanavi is matched up like very well by Tien. They're both elite junglers, and they're both very capable of playing this early game style of champion that can dictate whichever side the game goes to. So I don't think Kanavi has a massive lead, which is what JDG needs to really take over a game.
There it is. So the real risk here, and I mean, Zoom has been a great catalyst for JDG, since his return. Do we think that Gimgoon has enough to sort of keep him occupied up top and kind of almost relegate Zoom and Gimgoon as like a wash of one another, kind of like a little bit of back and forth, a lot of farming going on there, but not a whole lot of action from the top lane? Or is Zoom more likely to sort of jump out of the top lane and kind of join in with the others in their team battles?
Yeah, so before I get to that, there is one thing that's interesting to note with Kanavi. He is the most expensive jungler on the slate, even though he is an underdog technically, I guess, by a little bit. But that just goes to show how much focus they have on Kanavi as JDG's best player. But yeah, back to the top lane matchup. Zoom is better than Gimgoon. Like in my opinion, I think Zoom is better at carry champions, and tank champions are a bit of, anybody can play tank champions. And that's why I think the advantage is not that big between Zoom and Gimgoon, because Gimgoon can play something really safe, play something tanky, or just something that he won't die on.
Who's a tanky character?
So like a Maokai. Do you know Maokai? He's a big tree. There's
he's the one. I don't know. I don't know any of that. Mordecai.
Caitlyn. That's
I don't.
about it.
I see them. They beat me all the time. I don't know their names.
Yeah, so there's some tanky champions like Ornn. He's the big red guy who always calls in the big ram in the games.
Oh, I'm not. Yeah, not a fan of his.
He's really powerful as a tank because he can also kill you in one combo. So yeah, but if Gimgoon plays something safe and FPX leaves him alone like they usually do, he can play it safe. He can stay back and just not feed to Zoom and Kanavi, and the rest of the map I think is FPX favored, especially mid lane where Doinb is a lot better than Yagao is. So I think Gimgoon just has to not feed, and FPX will be in a good position.
So what we're saying here is, as you're watching this matchup, the key focal point is going to be the matchup between Kanavi and Tian. And can Tian sort of contain Kanavi, not let him go wild? I've been in games where the jungler on the other team just like scales up really quickly, and it's basically you're doomed at that point. Like I was up against this one that turns into a dragon or something.
Oh yeah,
that thing just looked at me and I was like, she would suck the energy out from across. I'd be like, she didn't even strike and I'm dead. What the hell just happened? I don't know.
Yeah, that's probably Shyvana. She's
Shyvana. Oh, I hate
Shyvana. When she gets ahead, the game is rough.
Yeah, that was a all right. Just surrender now. Shyvana can kill us with one blow.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, there's some angry commenters. They hate Shyvana, and the Fat Toad apparently is not a very liked character either. So there, yeah, Travis doesn't like. Who's the Fat Toad? Is that the?
That's Tom Kench, support champion.
Okay, there we go. So anyway, so for exposure's sake, you want to roll a little bit of dice. You're going to make one lineup. Advantage says IG, FPX, favorite, put it in the big money contest as your picks. But for those of you who are making multi-entries, I'm going to just share my experience from the last couple nights, 2-game slates. The difference the last couple nights to tonight was there was like very little interest in the underdogs, especially 2 nights ago when it was like 2 -500 favorites facing off, and you pretty much nailed the nuts if you ran the DS and just rolled the first like 5 lineups that it generated. It was like sitting right there in your face. It was like the first lineup that came out on the Dom. Basically, you let Jesus take the wheel. It did its business. One fun thing about these slates, you do have to set stacks. You have to turn them on because if you want to control team exposures, you need to do that. But it's going to stack anyway. There's only 2 teams, and it doesn't allow player for player. What I want to ask you about, so what I was going to say before I get to my final question is, it doesn't say for attacking this, is just figure out your percentages of each team. You don't got to get too crazy. My one thing is I really don't love playing supports in the captain spot, certainly not supports that don't score well. So I'm going to favor a top over a support usually if I'm forced to make that choice. And I try to limit how many supports because I haven't seen, it's just very infrequent that a support character is the nuts player, but doesn't mean I'm going to set it to 0, but just like 2 or 3%. But you want to mix up your exposures across these 4 teams, 60-40, 40-60, whatever makes you happy. 50-50 if you want to just go straight across the board. You want to use advantages picks a little bit more. You can go 65-65, 35-35, favorite underdog, something like that. But make sure you get a good mix to win the nuts. Yeah, and Seth is saying, yeah, pricing is relatively calm on this slate to the point where you should be able to not use a support in Kempa. Now, my one question for you is, are either of these games percolating as far as the potential for a game stack? Now, we have not seen a game stack be the correct move the last few nights.
Yeah, typically people like to game stack as like, to try to be different and maybe it pops off and you win. But I feel like it really doesn't work most of the time. Tonight is sort of a similar idea. If you wanted to game stack, the game would be IG versus TES. Both of these teams are very explosive and it is a close series, although I think IG will probably win like 3-1 or something like that. But if it goes to 5 games, If all 5 games are shootouts, that's the one that you want.
There we go.
Game stack.
So TESIG, a little more palatable as a game stock. Although, again, you're not saving any money. It's like both teams they definitely treated TES as a favorite. I'm actually a little surprised at how expensive their players are. And Yunjaya, your vagina. No, I'll stop. Even he's the only player that's cheap, 5,200, and he never scores. So he doesn't score well most of the time. So I don't love him either. So really interesting slate tonight, guys. Let's take down the nuts again. Any final thoughts? Are you excited just to watch these semifinals? And when is the final? Is it tomorrow?
Well, these obviously are semifinal games.
Yeah.
Tomorrow is the FPX versus JDG game. I don't know exactly when the final is. I haven't really looked that far ahead. But I'll be watching these series. These are like the best of the best teams in the world, basically, and should be high level gameplay all around.
It's a set your alarm situation.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna be watching it.
I'm just looking for sub threats. Really nothing. I mean, you put in sub threats here. These are just guys that have been switched around but none of these guys have been being switched around in the playoffs. So I wouldn't worry too much about those sub threats. The
only one that I think maybe would get subbed is Uyanja from Top Esports. They did have a series where they put in QQ near the end of the season with Jackie Love, maybe just to experiment how that goes. But more likely than not, Uyanja will stay in.
I found that if they're subbing the guy out, outside of that one crazy time when we saw it just in the middle of a series for no reason after guys went nuts. That was that LCK division.
Yeah.
For the most part, if they're subbing somebody in, it's because they lost the first match and they're in trouble anyway. And so, you weren't going to win. Yeah, I kind of look at that as I wasn't going to win with the stacking anyway, so who cares? All right, that's it for the PenatKill, DFS Army, League of Legends, DraftKings FanDuel breakdown. Remember to like and subscribe to this channel. If you're watching this, you like what we're doing here. We're breaking down League of Legends. You want to find out when we're going live, you need to hit subscribe on the channel here. You got to like the video. Let us know that you're watching. I don't know if people watch this.
Hopefully.
Why would I do another one? So like and subscribe. You'll get more of this kind of content. We got all kinds of esports content. That's what we do now. We're the esports people. So you can sign up at DFS Army, get the Domination Station Optimizer. You can get Advantage in a chat. You can ask him questions. You can hound him. Taco, the best, the sharpest esports minds. You got Bobby Klinkert, FanDuel, DraftKings millionaire, FanDuel millionaire. Breaking down Call of Duty. Ridiculous. May 2nd, Crow says. Third place game, April 29th. What's today? April 25th. So
it's going to be a bit of a break.
Math. Kind of later next week. Finals May 2nd. So stuff finishes up. But can't interrupt my promo. DFS Army, we have a promo going. Use code esports. You get $20 for the first month. You can check out what we're doing. We're covering every esport. We got League of Legends, CSGO, Rocket League, League of Legends. We got other leagues coming up. Europe, Brazil, Czechoslovakia, Jordan, Saudi Arabia has a league. We're going to try to get that going. In Saudi Arabian league, they make the women, the characters, wear more covered costumes. It's not moderate. It's not moderate, but it's not. Yeah, what's her name? What's the one that everybody likes? Miss Fortune. Her outfit's not appropriate.
Oh no, definitely not.
They cover her up. It's a different version, but still good players over there. So lots of other leagues coming up. Lots of good stuff happening for League of Legends, and of course MMA coming back in 2 weeks. The biggest week of UFC in the history of the UFC. 3 massive events all within 10 days. I can't wait for that. So lots of great things coming up. Promo code esports, dfsarmy.com. And remember to like and subscribe to this channel to get all these videos. Advantage, thank you so much for doing this. I'll see you on top of the leaderboard. I need to add another first place win. We got to keep it going. 2 in a row, going for 3.
Yeah, there's it's been pretty good for a lot of people in the DFS Army world. So let's keep that going.
It's all in the notes, all in the projections. I love it all. So I just rely on you guys. I never even watched an esport before 3 weeks ago. So here we go.
Yeah.
Great stuff. All right. Take care, my man. Take care, everyone. Good luck tonight.
Good luck, everybody.